around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling? Welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, in this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back.
What's up, everybody? Hardest part of the ring. Back with some vengeance. 2001. The final pay-per-view of 2001. Woo doggy. And finally, we are done with the invasion. Christ, man. Man, it feels like we were on that storyline since the goddamn Nixon administration. Like, holy shit, did that storyline drag out. But Survivor Series is the pay-per-view that we are fresh off of. Survivor Series 2001, of course. As I just mentioned, that is kind of the culmination of the invasion storyline. The WWF conquered the Alliance. You know, that WCW, ECW team comprised of Shane McMahon, Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, fucking, you know, all that shit, right? So that's done. Brings us to Vengeance. What, you know, what I associate this pay-per-view with, and what all of you who are aware of this era probably associate this pay-per-view with, is the crowning of the first ever Undisputed World Champion. So coming out of Survivor Series, they of course have the WWF title, but they also have the world title that they have newly deemed the world title, because it was previously the WCW championship, but now WCW is dead and buried. So now we have the world championship, not world heavyweight championship, world championship. So that is basically the main premise of this show. And yeah, man, just what a weird time this is. Like, anyone that is a frequent listener to me knows that I did not watch during this period. From basically Vengeance up through Royal Rumble 2003, I've never seen any of these pay-per-views. And this is the beginning of this segment in time that I am not super familiar with, other than like the key plot points, right? But also it's just a weird time for the company, right? Because WWF only has a few months of being WWF, first of all. But this is that weird period in between, you know, because you had Attitude Era, and then, you know, the Invasion Era, whatever you want to call it. If you want to put that in with the Attitude Era, that's whatever tickles your pickle, right? But December of 2001, I have a hard time calling this the Attitude Era. And it's definitely not the Ruthless Aggression Era, because, you know, that hasn't, you know, that famous Vince McMahon promo and all that hasn't happened yet. So it's this weird in-between kind of period. It's almost like a lost era, even though lots of major things happened, right? Because we're just a few weeks away from Triple H returning. We're just a few months away from the NWO. And man, 2002 has a lot of major implications for the company. But right now, it's almost like this company at this point in time is like in an idle period. It's almost like they're just waiting for Triple H to come back. And I don't know, that very may well have been an initial plan. In fact, I would almost say that's a definite, considering Triple H is on the fucking poster of this pay-per-view. But of course, he's not on the card. But like I said, he's on the pay-per-view poster. And another funny like element to this is all like the graphics, like the little chyrons that like show the wrestlers' names and their entrances. All of the match preview graphics had a lot of sledgehammer animations. So, and what does that have to do with vengeance, right? So that's got to be a nod to Triple H, right? Maybe it's just foreshadowing his return. Maybe it's just like the imminent, return of Triple H. Maybe that's the deal here. But whatever the case may be, it is very clear that Triple H is a heavy influence on their future plans at this time. And we get that solidified at the Royal Rumble. But we're not there yet. We're at Vengeance. But before we get into Vengeance, real quick, if you subscribe to this podcast, if you follow me on social media and YouTube, most importantly, you would have seen my WWF 2001 tier list that I did last week. It was a live show, and I plan to do more of those going forward. So go check it out on my YouTube channel. I basically ranked every 2001 pay-per-view that WWF put on in a tier list format. The chat was going, and it was a good time. It was a good time. So go check that out. Audio version is also available. It was the episode previous to this. But go check out the YouTube version. It was a fun time. But yeah, man, Vengeance 2001, closing out the year. Like I said, it's mainly known for the final 3 matches to crown the first ever Undisputed Champion, to unify the WWF title and the world title. But other than that, outside of that, this was actually a very solid show. 2001 has been killing it with these pay-per-views, man. I mean, there hasn't been a bad show of the bunch, I don't think. But on this show, you also get RVD versus Undertaker in a hardcore match. Not just that, you get RVD versus short hair Undertaker. A heel Undertaker. We'll get into that in the podcast, but lots of great shit there. You get William Regal versus Edge, who are both like at their physical primes at this point. You have this really bizarre match with the Hardys facing each other, which is something that I've never seen this before. And as a Hardy Boys mark, I was befuddled watching it. Let's put it that way. Lots of great wrestling. You got Test trying to rape Trish Stratus. So yeah, lots of man. This show, I'll say this though. This show is kind of a rough watch in hindsight, man. There is just, boy howdy, were women just objects at this time. Well, good God. And going off that, guess who's back on commentary? Jerry the King Lawler. And he is unloading all of that misogyny that he had pent up in his few months off. The time's what it was, but man, like I said, in hindsight, it's a roughie. But outside of that, really solid show, and was stoked to have Devin and Hafiz from the Clark Street Wrestling Podcast on to recap this show. Go subscribe to them wherever you listen to podcasts. Check them out on YouTube as well. They have video versions. Go subscribe to them, the Clark Street Wrestling Podcast. All their info in the description. Really good guys. Really fun time on this episode. And let's get into it. WWF Vengeance 2001 with myself and the Clark Street Wrestling Podcast.
This is home for us.
Good to hear it. Yeah, I've tried Zoom and stuff, and nothing even comes close to the ease and everything, the quality and all that. Yeah. By the way, sorry if you guys are planning on watching Raw tonight. Sorry for cutting into
man, you're ruining my night because I'm missing Raw.
I'm sure you guys have big plans. You got to watch Naomi lose to Eva Marie.
I'd rather talk about Vengeance than for sure.
I am with you.
That's 20 years ago. I'd rather talk about that.
Glad we're on the same page. But yeah, so both, thank you guys once again, by the way, for making the time to do this. Really appreciate it. So did you guys both get a chance to watch the show?
Oh yeah,
Yes. Saw,
yeah.
saw the whole thing. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I rewatched
Yeah.
it. I was like, wow, this was 20 years ago, man.
It's
The
crazy,
Me Too
dude.
movement would have had their hands full with this.
Oh man. Don't worry. We're gonna get knee deep or head deep into this, man. Like,
Yeah.
because I guess so. I'm guessing you guys are like kind of similar to my age. So my question: were you guys watching the product at this time live?
I was.
Yeah.
I actually watched it. I remember watching this pay-per-view scrambled, because I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I didn't have I didn't buy the pay-per-view, but I watched it scrambled. You had still had audio, but trying to make pictures.
I've done
what was
many of
going
that
on.
in my day too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember if I saw it scrambled or if somehow I was able to see it, but I remember buying at the time the DVD for it afterwards, just because, with all of those stars there, I was like, man, I have to have this. So,
Right.
Yeah. But beforehand, I saw it. I remember, I don't even know if it was like, black box or whatever, but I was able to see it.
Right. Yeah. This is actually my first time watching it because there was like a brief period where I wasn't watching. So this is what, and I've seen like the main event and all that. I knew how all that played out, but there was some stuff on this show. It's like Rob Van Dam versus Undertaker. That happened. Like, I had no idea.
I was like, oh yeah, that's right, for the hardcore championship. I was like, wow.
coveted hardcore
championship.
So you guys were watching live. So this is my question actually, since I was not watching live. When you went into this, who did you guys suspect was going to walk out the Undisputed Champion? If you remember.
With me, it would be, I was a big Stone Cold fan. I'm still and that's my favorite wrestler, all time favorite wrestler, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I had, the feeling of, all right, Stone Cold, he's gonna win. He got the momentum. Him and Kurt Angle going at it, but I felt like he was the one that can carry 2 titles and be that true undisputed champion.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting because you were coming off of the Alliance versus WWF storyline, and Stone Cold was kind of in an interesting place at that time where he was a heel, but the fans still loved him. So it was kind of hard to know like which way they would go. Then The Rock comes in the storyline, and he's just megastar too. So babyface, except for when he goes against Stone Cold. Usually it's Stone Cold whenever the two of them go against each other. And then Jericho had injured Triple H, and Kurt Angle had been a part of the whole alliance thing, and then he betrayed Stone Cold and the alliance and jumped ship, and there was all this.
You need like a whiteboard with strings.
Yeah, there was
so
much going on at this time. So to be honest with you, I'm not even sure who I thought was going to win this. It was just one of those things where just being a fan of all of these wrestlers at the time, because I remember just loving all of them, thinking like, oh, it's cool, like we get all of these stars, all these different characters in one big tournament, like King of the Ring tournaments back then, and any type of setup where you can put like a bunch of the best wrestlers together. It was always like, oh, this is cool, like who's it gonna be? And you make your picks, but I honestly can't tell you who I thought. I mean, I was a big fan of The Rock, and Stone Cold, but I probably would say The Rock is probably who I would have picked back then. But it's tough, man, just thinking of how all over the place the storylines were back then.
For sure. And it's interesting. I bring that up because I don't think either of you guys mentioned Chris Jericho as far as like someone you suspected, which I think I'm almost like, is that why they went with him? Is because it was so unpredictable? Like he's like the 4th guy anybody would have suspected it, I think, if you're watching live.
Yeah, I imagine. That's probably why they went with them, just the shock value of it all. I mean, this whole pay-per-view was kind of funny because Triple H, at that time was supposed to be making his return, and he's on the cover
he's on the poster.
Vengeance. Yeah, he's on the poster. Yep. So there's this whole thing where what would it have been like had Triple H been ready to go at this time? So yeah, I don't know. I feel like Jericho. So I listened to Jericho's interview with Stone Cold, and even Jericho found out last minute that it was going to happen. It just kind of, they just told him. He's like, oh, really? Oh, okay. And he almost didn't believe it, when they told him. So, I don't know. I feel like this was probably around the genesis of Vince McMahon kind of making these last minute decisions, because now it's commonplace that, oh, Vince will change his mind like in the morning before a Raw, like, hey, we're going to change everything. So, who knows? Who knows why they picked Jericho?
Because like you said, it's just a weird time because like you said, this is right after the invasion kind of all wrapped up, and there's plans to have like 2 brands, WCW, WWF, and then that all kind of evaporated, and then it's like they almost didn't know what to do, and it's almost, I feel like this pay-per-view is pretty much just one big volley for Triple H's return. Like it's basically just setting it up for Triple H to come back and then spike Jericho into which is ended up what happened. But before we get into the show, you brought up Stone Cold and like the position he was in at this point. And I'm watching because I watch all the Raws and SmackDowns too to kind of get ready for these pay-per-views too, just to kind of like feel that what the atmosphere was at the time. And I guess my question is, do you guys think Stone Cold was stale at this point? Because like you said, he was heel during the Alliance and all that stuff, and then pretty much the Raw after that just all went out the window, and he was back to being Stone Cold babyface. He kicks Vince McMahon's ass. I think he gives him a stunner on the Raw right after or something. But he's basically back to what he had been doing a few years previously. Like pretty much almost exactly. So I'm almost wondering, like, okay, is this like kind of like he's just reverting back to what we've already seen before, so maybe it's not as interesting?
I mean that. Go ahead. That's. I'll let Devin take this one because that's his guy. So we'll see what he says.
Yeah. He was my favorite. So looking at the pay-per-view, 20 years ago, and then looking at it, 20 years now, I overlooked a lot of shit on that pay-per-view. I was like, and that's a good question that you brought up. Was he stale? I want to say he was right on the precipice of being stale. Like, after, 2001, I think maybe 2 more years of Stone Cold right before he retired. But I want to say within that period, he was kind of slowing down and on his way, mentally checking out.
Right. Yeah, because I just went through his whole heel run, and it was parts of it were better than I remember it being. Like, it was very entertaining as a heel. Towards the end of the invasion, everything got really stupid and didn't make sense. But, like, he played the character very well, much better than I remember. So now it's almost like, it's like he was having fun, but now he's just kind of, like, doing the same old shit.
It's interesting. It's interesting to think about it, because my memory of it, I didn't watch the Raws and SmackDowns leading up to it, but I remember back then actually really loving Stone Cold's character back then. Like I said, even though, he was a heel, he just was so damn charismatic. Like every time he showed up on screen, I was just like, oh, what crazy thing is he gonna do next? Like there was one moment where like Taz, was just the target of all of his anger all of a sudden. I think Taz messed something up. He lost the match or whatever.
I don't know who Taz pissed off at this point. It seemed like every other goddamn week he was like getting his belt ripped off and whipping him like in the middle of the ring. It was like several times over the course of months. Like, why?
Yes, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Still, I wish someone would come out and say, hey, this is what was going on behind the scenes. But Stone Cold, though, there was something about that character that he was just so like, you didn't know what he was going to do or say or who he was going to get pissed off this episode or next episode. So, and he was just still funny. Like the chemistry he had with Vince McMahon at that time too. And then with Kurt Angle and just him and Kurt like vying for Vince McMahon's attention, and Kurt, being like the golden child and Stone Cold seeing this and be like, oh no, I can do this, sure, and standing up and kind of like trying to be that guy. I don't know. It's just to me, it was a fun time to watch Stone Cold because it was very different from that badass that was always it was against the boss and just being that SOB like he always was before. Now we got to see him almost in this more comedic role. And then to your point, I guess leading up to this, like I said, I didn't watch the lead up to it, but I guess you could say that maybe one of the reasons why they picked Jericho was to do something a little bit different because he was still WWF champion at this time. So maybe we're like, all right, let's switch it up a little bit, and then give Jericho the championship because we know we're having Triple H come back. We know I think it was X8 that was the next WrestleMania, so that eventually led up to Jericho and Triple H. So maybe they said, hey, let's go in a little bit different direction. Stone Cold, we got some other things with you and maybe, the NWO because they had Scott Hall, coming in with Nash and Hogan. And that whole thing that's all like a whole nother podcast probably to talk about.
Yes.
That is
for sure.
Yeah, so stale. For me, my memory is that he was stale. for me, it was just kind of entertaining to see him in a different light.
Yeah, I agreed. Maybe approaching stale, but at the end of the day, he's still Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like he's still the best thing they got at the time. Right. So it's like, but yeah, man. So just getting right into it. So the intro to this show, Vince McMahon comes out looking not pissed, just kind of annoyed. I would describe it. Yeah. Not a lot of energy from him. Not his usual walkouts. And he comes. The reason he's upset is because the SmackDown previous to this, he got a stink face from Rikishi. Oh, yeah. And if you missed it, don't worry, they'll recap it like 12 other times throughout this show. So it's like the whole thing. So Rikishi. So this is the whole beginning of the Kiss My Ass Club. So I think Regal was the first one, and they tried to get JR. I think JR did join in to the Undertaker. We'll touch on that when during the Undertaker match. But then there's a point the SmackDown previous to this where I forget what the setup is, but Vince McMahon basically has to kiss The Rock's ass. But The Rock's like, oh no, your lips aren't worth my ass, or whatever he said. And then brings out Trish. Then he teases Vince like Vince gets to kiss Trish's ass, but stops him. Brings out Rikishi, is his cottage cheese ass, brings him on out there, and goes diving head first right into his ass. And then that's so that's basically what he's the whole. It's like a 10-minute promo in the beginning where he's mad about that. And another funny note is this is like the beginning of the what chants. Oh, so because this is when he, like Stone Cold started doing it, so it's funny seeing people, because nowadays you hear it, it's like, okay, it's this goddamn what chance again. But back then I was like, are they just saying what? Like, how do I respond to this? So
even Vince McMahon was playing around with it too. So
yeah, exactly. And then he cuts this long-winded promo, and he ends it with "He who laughs last laughs loudest." So pretty much foreshadowing to the end of the show. Then, which brings out Ric Flair, his 50-50 partner, I guess. So apparently Flair purchased the stocks that Shane and Stephanie sold when they disbanded, something along those lines.
Yep.
He says, shut the hell up, Vince. These people want to see a pay-per-view, not you talk, which is accurate. What do you guys remember about Ric Flair there? Because I don't really know a lot about Ric Flair in WWE pre-Evolution.
I think they just wanted to find a way to bring him back, in the fold and on TV. And there wasn't really a plan at that time. It felt like, I remember there was that documentary they did for the Attitude Era, and before Evolution, Ric Flair was lost. Like, he didn't know, he didn't have a direction, and he didn't know who he was anymore. And Triple H kind of saw that and brought him into Evolution. So at that time, watching him, again, for me as a fan, watching it, I just remember being like, oh, that's a cool way to bring in Ric Flair. Instead of having him be, fighting for the championship like they kept doing with a lot of the older guys in WCW, here it's like, well, why don't you put him on even field in a way with Vince McMahon and say he's part owner? And, they did that with a couple other people too. I thought it was funny. I guess looking back at it now, it feels like, I don't know, maybe there was an opportunity there to do something a little bit more with that, because I don't really have a strong memory of Ric Flair as part owner. Like, this probably is the most significant thing that happened, with him being a part of the Undisputed Championship being crowned to someone. But beyond that, it just seemed like he was just kind of there.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, even though his character was a part owner, it felt like he was more in the GM role. That's how I felt when I was watching it at that time. So I didn't feel any different. Like to Afeez's point, that was cool that you get to see Ric Flair in that limelight. But I didn't think anything further than that. Like, oh, I'd like to see him in a championship match, or just get up with these younger guys or something like that. So
yeah, man, it's crazy in hindsight knowing that he would return to the ring and would wrestle for another 8 years or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Man,
some of these guys, they just, Rick, I think if they would let him, I think he would wrestle now. I think that just in his mind, he's still that guy. He's still the Nature Boy, But here, I think that at that time, it was good not to have him be, you know, in the ring and just kind of like, all right, let's use him in this capacity, test it out, and let's see if this works. And it didn't. And then, you know, through Evolution and then post that, you know, with his issues with Triple H and then later on Shawn Michaels for the, you know, well, it wasn't even an issue. It was more of like, if I lose again, then I retire kind of thing. And Shawn ends his career. It was what it was. You know, I appreciated being able to see Ric Flair in WWE because I only saw him in WCW before this. So it was kind of nice just to be able to see him have a couple matches, but you know.
Yeah, agreed for sure. But let me ask you this: was it nice to see the Hip Hop Hippo?
I forgot that was his nickname, to be honest with you.
I have no recollection of whatever the hell this was, this opening match. We have Albert and Scotty 2 Hotty versus Christian and Test.
Wow.
It was a match that happened.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, man. I was like, too cool. Like, where's Grandmaster Sex at?
That's
like,
what I was
why is Albert his tag team partner? When did that happen?
Better question, where the hell is X Factor? You know? They had more steam to them, I think. They're just gone.
Right.
I don't know. I guess maybe X-Pac left at this point. Who knows? But
right.
Christ, man. But, like, so this match, I thought it was a pretty solid opening match, honestly. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very fun, and I think it served the purpose of, you know, to get the crowd hot and all that. You have all your big time moves, you have the worms and all that. But one thing about this show, this is the return of Jerry the King Lawler to pay-per-view. And he's in rare form tonight. And including in this match,
my goodness,
he has a few suggestions for team names for Scotty and Albert. Let me run it down for you guys. We have the Honkadelics. We have MC Cracker, Run BMW, and the Pasty Boys. You guys like any of those names? You think they should have run with any of them?
You know, it's just so cringeworthy. It's crazy to think that they got away with that. You know, like, it's just crazy to me to even hear that. I was like, oh, no, Jerry, don't, no. You know, the whole time, I'm just like, oh, stop.
No. Man. Yeah, it was, but other than that, I enjoyed this match, other than, you know, Albert's dancing or whatever those movements are. Little, you know.
He can't dance.
Knocked his do-rag right off, let me tell you.
Man. Yeah, seeing the worm spot and how into it the crowd was at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, that pop was just almost as big as the pop The Rock gets for the People's Elbow. You know, like they're all into it. W-O-R.
I was doing it. I was singing along.
Christian did it. Yeah, they were into it, you know. So just props to him, just like, you know, having such an over move that just got the crowd exactly where they needed to be for the rest of the show.
Yeah,
I say props to Albert too, man. He actually looked like he was carrying that match because
I think Albert is super underrated. I feel like you could have put him in some like more serious role and he would have thrived. I think at this point, because like I said, he'd been doing X Factor and TNA. Get it, like tits and ass, everybody. And then Prince Albert when he debuted, and then it goes on to be Tensai. Like he gets all these goofy ass gimmicks, but this dude is like, you have this talented dude. He's man.
Question for you guys on this one. So, and I think I know where. I think Devin's brought this up before on our podcast, but seeing Christian with that European Championship, did that, Kyle, made you miss the European Championship at all?
No, it did not. Gotta be honest, I'm watching these Raws and SmackDowns, and I forgot he was European champion in this.
Yep. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. He was European champion.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Let me tell you, they have at this point half the titles that they had like a month previous, because they had all the WCW titles. And then they unified, so they had like the United States title, they had the cruiserweight and the light heavyweight and all that stuff. And man, but still, it's like they have too many somehow. I think the last good European champion was D'Lo Brown.
I was just about to mention
that's like the last.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much just two teams kind of thrown together. Although there is kind of the underlying story of at Survivor Series, Test was involved in the Immunity Battle Royal, as was Scotty 2 Hotty. But before the match, Test attacked Scotty to take a spot, because I guess that's how it works. And then Test went to go win the Battle Royal. And so now he can't get fired for a year. And that's important because it comes up in a great segment later. Outside of that, yeah, so Scotty hits the worm on Test. Christian gets in there, tries to hit the Unprettier onto Scotty, but Albert gets in there. And Baldo bombs Christian damn near through the mat. Like, it looked really good. So the Hip Hop Hippos, I guess, whatever you want to call them. MC Cracker wins the match. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this opener?
That it was just a fun opener. Like that the crowd was hot for it. Like I said, man, I give props to the Prince Albert, man. He's the one that stuck out to me because I felt like he was the one that was really carrying this tag team match between the two teams.
Yeah, kind of the beginning of the Un-Americans as well, if you guys are familiar with them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's good shit. It's such good shit.
Lance Storm, right? Was Lance Storm part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lance Storm and someone from this next match, William Regal, I believe, was a part of it. They couldn't be the Canadians, so they're going to be the Un-Americans. And it is for the Intercontinental title. We have the champion Edge versus William Regal. This match, I don't know if I just had like higher expectations for it, but it's almost like there was like a gear that it didn't hit for me.
No,
like,
agreed.
It was solid, but I feel like it was nothing special.
Because Edge got dominated the entire match.
I was going to say, William Regal dominated that match.
Yeah. William Regal in this era is kind of a weird thing because he's like commissioner. He's playing like the comedic authority role, but then he turns heel, and now we got to treat him seriously. And then now he tries to get his job back by kissing Vince McMahon's ass, and I guess it works. But so now we're supposed to take him seriously again. He's kind of all over the place at this point, but looks good. I mean, like I said, the match was good. We got some good chain wrestling in the beginning. Got a fresh Edge, fresh babyface Edge. There was the spot that I did like where Edge is basically, he's on his back near the ropes, and he basically up kicks Regal over the top rope to the floor, and then Edge gets on the apron and tries to spear Regal from the apron, but misses and hits the steps. That was pretty much like the main thing that happened in this match. This allowed Regal to kind of walk to the other side, pulled out his brass knucks. I guess he had like hidden under the stairs or something.
Yeah.
This is power of the punch era Regal. And then so they get back in the ring, they jostle a little longer, and then Regal gets frustrated, pulls out his brass knucks from his trunks, and goes to hit Edge with it, but then gets hit with a spear out of nowhere. So Edge wins, retains the title, and yeah, like I said, solid match. But maybe I just had too high of expectations for it.
Yeah, what's interesting is back then, I did not like William Regal at all. I didn't like it. I thought he was boring. I thought that, the character was like, okay. Over the years, I've grown to have so much more respect for him, and I don't know if it comes with age or whatnot, but I just have such a higher appreciation of him now. And then watching this now, 20 years later, I'm like, man, this dude was good. Like I didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand. Right. Like just the sophistication and the way that he wrestles and just the technical prowess that he had. I mean, there were other wrestlers that were technical that I loved at that time too, but for some reason it just didn't click with me with William Regal at that time. Yeah. But now, I don't know, I just feel like I just have a greater appreciation for that style and for him specifically, that when I look back, I'm like, man, there were a lot of little things that he would do. Like even just like you said, with the brass knucks, and I think this is probably one of the times where I thought commentary was kind of good with Jerry the King Lawler, because he would do a lot, that heel commentary thing of, what do you mean uses the brass knucks? Like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, and it's just one of those fun things that, it just gets you laughing and giggling about, oh my God, like really, you didn't see that, you don't see what he's doing. So it was fun commentary for him, helps build that heel character for him, and was in terms of the match up itself, like you said, higher expectations maybe, didn't really feel like it hit that gear, but that entertainment value was enough for me to say, okay, like I'm having fun still, and I'm enjoying just the nostalgia now more so than back then. Younger, I was like, whatever. This is a whatever matchup. I did appreciate too the Rob Zombie track for Edge.
Never gonna stop me.
Yeah, so and this man gets the the best music. Like how? Just he's so lucky. Just oh my god.
It's just so cool.
Yeah,
but
even from the Brood, and all that
stuff.
Man, but watching this match with my 36-year-old eyes now compared to my 16-year-old self, I definitely enjoyed William Regal, even though it stayed in one gear. I just enjoyed from his perspective of, the slow, methodical pace he was going, being very intelligent in the ring, using his wits. I like beginning of the match when the ref was searching him and make sure he didn't have the brass knuckles on him. He's like, there's no brass knuckles on me, nothing. And then you come to find out he had him stashed and wedged in between the stairs and the ring post. I was like, oh shit, that's pretty smart. That's smart as hell. Yeah. So I enjoyed the little things, just like Hafiz said, man. But it had a very anticlimactic finish though. Just a spear out of nowhere. But after Edge was getting dominated like throughout the whole match and just one spear and it was it. I was like, oh wow, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, that was it for me, man. But I just enjoyed, William Regal though.
They're like, we got 10 matches on this card. We need to speed this up.
Wrap it up.
Wrap this up, guys. Spear him, go. All right.
Bang bang boom, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a Hardy match to get to. Everybody, man, I think this could be a whole podcast episode in itself. This whole deal here, because
it's a lot going on.
I was a huge Hardy Boys mark during this time. Like they were the tippity top for me, and I expected a lot from this match, but man, it felt like a fever dream watching this. Like, so this all stems from Survivor Series where Jeff cost them the match by doing the swanton off the cage when he could have just escaped and they could have won. And then, deservingly so, Matt is pissed off at this. So, and then the weeks after, he's like, "Oh, you're careless. You don't think. You're costing us matches. You're costing my career." So, and then Lita's in there trying to be the peacemaker, but Matt's kind of being a little abusive to her, whatever. But then Jeff is kind of just there. So it's almost like in the build-up, like I like how they didn't really touch much in the build, which I think is like a concept that is kind of not utilized as much as it should be because you get to see these guys lock up on this pay-per-view for the first time. But otherwise, the build-up, it was like, because Matt is definitely positioned as the heel here, but neither guy is really giving you a reason to cheer for him at this point, I feel like, because you understand where Matt's coming from, how Jeff is careless and costing them matches, but you also see how Matt is being a dick towards Jeff and towards Lita and all that stuff. And then, and I think people just didn't want to see them fight against each other. I feel like, because if I was watching at the time, I would have been like, not liking that they're fighting. Like, I wouldn't be cheering for anybody. I would just be wanting it to stop and wanting them to get back together, which I think they eventually do, right?
I think so. A couple times they did, yeah. Because I know V1 Matt Hardy was still in it was happening in the future. So, but I know they broke up, got back together, broke up a couple times, yeah.
Yeah. I think they get back together like around Rumble time. Then after WrestleMania and the brand split, they split up. And I think that's when V1 starts, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Version 1.
But yeah, I mean, the match was, I think because the crowd was not into it for whatever reason. I think one reason maybe it felt like just like a wrestling match.
The style just didn't fit them. Yeah. It was a very just methodical, slow pace. And you're expecting with the Hardys, it's going to be, high flying moves, fast pace. I mean, honestly, the matchup later on with Big Show and Kane, that tag match, was faster paced than this match was, which is crazy to think of with two heavyweights. So I think the crowd was just kind of like, there's a lot of things, what you said about people just loving the Hardys and not really feeling like, oh, I hate either one for whatever reason. It was just kind of an awkward feeling. Like then I remember feeling like, oh, this sucks, that Matt and Jeff are fighting. And I had the same feeling now, watching it 20 years later, I just felt awkward about it. Like, this is uncomfortable, watching these two fight. And it just didn't feel, it felt a little forced to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have the Matt and Jeff fight each other? They've been tagging up forever and maybe this dynamic, but it just wasn't, it didn't feel right for them. And then the pacing of the match, just on its own, the match was just like, it didn't really fit them.
No, exactly. Yeah, I think you're going into it, like you said, you're expecting high spots, you're expecting ladders and all that stuff, but you just get wrist locks and headlocks and all that stuff. It picks up a little bit towards the end where Jeff goes for a sunset flip power bomb to the outside onto Matt, but Matt goes for it on Jeff, but Jeff reverses into a Hurricane Rana. They get back in the ring. Jeff tries to do his little front flip into the ring, but jams his knee up, which plays into the story of it, how his carelessness kind of costing him success, which I did like that how they played that up in this match. Jeff, I'll say this about Jeff though, there's not a lot of people that are better sellers than Jeff Hardy. I don't think.
True. Yes.
Like I said, he jammed his leg up, so he can't. He went for a planche on the outside, but he couldn't do it because of his leg.
Yep.
And he just kind of hobbled over for like a weak baseball slide, which all made sense, based on what happened. And throughout this match, Matt reinforces that he's the heel by trying to cheat, trying to hold the ropes during pins, tying up Jeff in the ropes, holding submissions for a full 5 count, and Lita's getting upset at him, and then he's getting upset at Lita. That's another thing about this match that I think kind of made it awkward, is that the crowd was pretty much just chanting for Lita. I think she was the star of this match. But by the way, the special guest referee, I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but yeah, she's the referee in this match. But at the end, Jeff hits the swanton, pins Matt, 1, 2, 3. Matt gets his foot on the bottom rope, but Jeff pulls it off without Lita seeing it. And Matt is irate at Lita, and then they argue, and then kind of just saunter to the back. So, yeah, just a weird match, I think.
Yeah, I remember, because I was heavily into tag teams back then, and the Hardy Boys was one of my favorite tag teams. And just seeing this, it sucked. I didn't like it. And then fast forward to now, 20 years now, I still didn't like it. The little things that I did like in this match was just from Matt. Little small character, issues he had with Lita or his brother, all that leading up in little promos. That was crazy. I forgot that they got into him and Jeff, and they actually pushed Lita to the floor, to the ground. I was like, holy shit, that's kind of wild. So I was like, man, I completely forgot about that. But man, this match to this day still sucks for me. I didn't like it. Didn't like it. Like you said, the two styles didn't really click, but I felt like Matt was trying to force his brother to wrestle, like grounded. So I think that's why it didn't work.
Right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, it's just like, it's almost like because it's weird to say that brothers don't have chemistry, but it's almost like there's too much pressure on them. Like they expected everybody to expect them to have chemistry. So I think maybe it was too much for them at this point in their careers. Yeah, I think the WrestleMania match several years later, I think, was a lot better. I guess what people were expecting with this one.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you say the chemistry, because that is exactly what I was thinking about when I was watching this match. Like, it's weird that they seem like they just don't know how to work with each other in a matchup against each other. Like, it just felt like things were off a little bit. The pacing was off. Still, I mean, they're both charismatic as hell, especially Jeff. Like you said, the selling, with Jeff was great. It's just, I don't know, it just felt a little bit off. But credit to Matt, overall for sticking with it, playing into this heel character. It's funny, the logic behind, why he was upset made total sense to me, watching it now. I don't remember how I felt about it then. I don't think I was even paying attention to that. I was just mad that they were fighting each other. But watching it again, it's like, it makes sense that Jeff would take that risk to hit that swanton, and then Matt would be like, no, just climb out the cage and we win. And then, this whole thing, I'm like, yeah, Matt, I totally get it. Like, he's not even really a heel to me from that standpoint. It's more of how he's, treating Lita and, berating both of them and, saying, hey, if you love me, you'll be on my side no matter what. Like, whoa, calm down. Like, so, I feel like there were some story elements that kind of made it somewhat interesting looking back at it now. But it just overall, it just kind of fell flat. And to your point, later on as they, got to work with each other a little bit more in a different dynamic against each other, it made for better matches to come.
Yeah. Yeah, and both these guys are new to the singles game relatively at this point, which is crazy because, you know, Jeff would go on to have that classic match with The Undertaker like a few months after this, I think. And then, like we said, Matt has the whole V1 thing, which is arguably the best thing he ever did in his career.
I love V1 Matt Hardy.
So good, dude. So good. But I'll tell you what was not good. It's this next segment here. So Trish Stratus is walking backstage. She knocks on The Rock's locker room. And she walks in, tells him that she loved how he shoved Vince's face into Rikishi's ass on SmackDown and all that stuff. And I'm the whole time thinking, is like, Trish, don't you have a match you should be like preparing for? Like, why are you lollygagging backstage talking to The Rock?
Right.
But then they kind of go back and forth with their dialogue, whatever they say. But then ultimately Rock says that Trish is going to smell what he's cooking. And then he pulls his pants up, you know. It's like, yeah, so I guess she's gonna smell his penis. Is that what we're doing? What are we doing here?
2001 was a wild time.
Man. I'm telling you, it's wild. It's wild to think about what they were doing back then and looking at. There's no way you could do. What's funny about this too is that segment was probably one of the least worst things that would happen involving, you know, women on this show. And that in itself is like, oh my God, wow. But later on, the things we would see, I felt like I just continued to cringe more and more and more as the show went on. When it came to the female competitors, when it came to, you know, Stacy Keibler, and then we'll talk about Trish again during her match. But yeah, just it blows my mind to think about it. You know,
it's cringe for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, at least no women got their skirts pulled down and spanked in the middle of. Oh shit, never mind. So this next match, we have the WWF World Tag Team titles on the line. We have Kane and Big Show versus the Dudley Boys, with the Duchess of Dudleyville, Stacy Keibler, accompanying them. Weird, just Kane and Big Show were just thrown together. It was a weird period in Big Show's career too. He was kind of directionless at this point. So was Kane too. Kane always felt like the second to Undertaker, but now the Undertaker's heel, which we'll get to later, it's almost like he kind of separated from that a little bit. But like you guys mentioned earlier, this match was better. It was better than I expected it to be. It was a higher pace than the Hardy match that we saw before this somehow. The beginning, we see Kane and Big Show dominate, obviously because they're giants. Both Dudleys get knocked to the outside. Kane hits a clothesline from the top rope to the outside. Man, this spry young Kane is a sight to see.
It's nice to see Kane 20 years earlier.
Yeah, man, that dude can move. Oh man, old Mayor Glenn. Man, but so this prompts Stacy Keibler to get into the ring. She's upset for some reason. But Big Show walks up behind her, pulls her skirt down, bends her over his knee, and spanks her. Crowd loves it.
Oh, they loved it.
They love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further analysis on that spot?
No, I mean, you said it, and it happened, and it'll never happen again. But you know,
never.
I'm
surprised Peacock allowed this.
Well, that's the other thing too. I thought that Peacock, there were going to be some things that they were censoring, you know, because it didn't go with their, you know, whatever theme or whatever. And yeah, I was shocked. I was like, whoa, that happened? Oh my God. You know, and then just the reactions and the King, forget it. Like he's just gonna run with that, like no other. So yeah, man, it's just wild to see that. And yeah, it was just nonstop. It was just nonstop at that time. And it's just, we're in a totally different world now. Boy.
Yeah, it was like Attitude Era like residue, because it's like this weird period in the early 2000s where it's still like very risque in a lot of ways, but it's like poorly done a lot of times. But the match continues on. The Dudleys hit the Waza headbutt to Kane, so they get the momentum a little bit. But ultimately, Kane goes for a top rope clothesline on the Devon, but Devon moves out of the way, and Kane accidentally hits Big Show, causing friction between them. So how are these guys going to get along? This continues later in the match, towards the end, when Kane is on the apron, but Big Show accidentally runs into him and knocks him off. This allows the Dudleys to take advantage. Devon hangs up Big Show on the top rope by his throat. And then I kind of like the finish. So they basically take off a turnbuckle pad, exposing the steel. And they hit, I guess it's implied that it's a 3D, but it was really like a double flapjack. Face first into the exposed steel and pins Big Show. So the Dudleys win and retain the titles. And ultimately, it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, this match, other than just giving the Dudleys another win, solidifying their title reign. But for what it was, I enjoyed it, I think.
It was a good match. Like, they had good chemistry between the two tag teams. I actually enjoyed the strong loss for Big Show. The Dudley boys exposed the turnbuckles, so when they do the 3D, his headbutt, and they, commentators are selling that. So I'm like, cool, that's a strong finish. But man, I forgot how in sync at times Big Show and Kane were, man. I was like, wow, these guys move very well. Especially Kane, he's on the top rope, diving. I'm like, holy shit, Kane, I forgot you, man, your young self. You was just jumping all over, doing 50-yard dashes, all that good stuff, man. But it was a fun match. Besides, the Stacy Keibler, probably my 16-year-old self didn't mind. That's one of the things I overlooked. But now I'm 36, wiser, calmer. I'm like, oh shit, this is kind of effed up right now.
It's pretty unnecessary.
Right, unnecessary. Like, if I wanted to watch this with my daughter, I'd be like, you know what? Let's fast forward through this part.
Right.
Yeah, skip a couple of scenes. This ain't for you.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was a quick match, whatever. But it's crazy. We say, that's whatever match, but we have like 4 Hall of Famers in here, 5 if you count Stacy, arguably, and then you have like Matt and Jim. Like this whole show is loaded. It's star-studded.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, from a Hall of Fame standpoint, this is ridiculous when you look at this on paper. Like, good Lord.
Insane. But including this next match, which is probably my personal match of the night. Funny enough, it's for the hardcore title. We have the champion, Rob Van Dam, versus the Undertaker. Not just Undertaker, short hair Undertaker. Newly heel, just a whole new look to him. We've had, the whole run. He was on the team WWF in the whole invasion. Kind of like understated throughout that whole storyline. I mean, they had the match with Chronic. I don't know if you guys remember that at all.
Oh my God.
It's just stuff like that. But now he's got something I think he can like sink his teeth into, this whole new character. I should mention he turned heel because I think I briefly mentioned it earlier where Vince McMahon was trying to get JR to join the Kiss My Ass Club. JR didn't want to do it, which, Undertaker comes out. He's like, JR, do you think that makes you better than me? Something along those lines. And then, Taker beats up JR and turns heel. But crowd doesn't really want to boo Taker at this point, I'm thinking. I don't know if that's what you guys kind of got from this.
I'm thinking that too.
Yeah, Taker's one of those guys that, it's kind of like Stone Cold. You can try to make him heel, but it's parts we love them so much, and parts they're just so damn charismatic that they make a heel character cool. Like the American Badass character is just like, oh, okay, cool. And then, him just even during this matchup, some of his facial expressions and things he was saying in the crowd, people chanting RVD. He's like, yeah, RVD's getting his ass kicked. Right back to him. I'm like, oh, this is great, man.
Yeah.
This is.
He seemed like he was having fun out there.
He was.
He was on the time of his life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think did his heel run last that long? I'm trying to remember.
It went to at least WrestleMania, because I know when he faced Ric Flair, and it was when he was like beating the hell out of his son in the bathroom or some weird shit.
Yeah.
But then they had like the whole match with Jeff Hardy. But I know by like when Brock Lesnar comes around, they have their whole feud, and then he's a babyface there. But yeah, it was kind of a weird heel period for Undertaker. But I loved it. Because like I said, you could tell he's enjoying what he's doing, and that translates to the viewer.
coming down to Limp Bizkit music. You know, that's like the most fake music ever.
Man.
Keep rolling. You supposed to boo this man?
Loved it.
No.
Loved it.
Yeah, that's the thing too, and I think they eventually change it. I don't know when they change it, but it's like, you know what, Limp Bizkit, you can't boo Limp Bizkit. I think it's what they thought.
But then it was what, Kid Rock, American Badass. I don't remember which one came from, but both of those songs for him too. It's just like this is just still cool. He's cool whatever he does.
Yeah, exactly. So they fight in pretty much all this match occurs outside of the ring. It's a hardcore match, of course. They immediately get to the crowd. There's a point where someone has a Mexican flag in the crowd. So Taker takes it and chokes RVD with it, which is something about two Americans using a Mexican flag to choke one another. I don't know. Got to improv, I guess, somehow.
Right.
They fight all through the crowd. They get like towards like the corner, like kind of by the entranceway. RVD does a crazy crossbody off of the little like I don't know what you call it, entranceway. It's like from a 10-foot crossbody onto Taker. Gets a 2 count, and then this is the point where Taker's like jaw jacking with the crowd and all that stuff. They get to the stage eventually, where there's like a lot of like crazy spots, especially for the time. You have like Taker going for the last ride on the stage, but RVD grabs the little trusses and climbs up it. Jumps on the Taker. You see a Rolling Thunder on the stage, a Van Terminator on the stage. Yep. And then the finish was great, I thought. So basically Taker goes for a tombstone onto RVD, but RVD gets out of it, takes a steel chair that Taker had gotten previously. He takes the chair, throws it at Taker, and RVD goes for the Van Terminator, but misses. Looks smooth as hell, this whole like kind of interaction here. And Taker just grabs him by the fucking throat and choke slams him off the stage, through the tables below. No crash pads here, just tables.
That's all
tables and
right
wires. And which I don't even know if that's like better. I mean, I'm sure it's not as comfy to take than a crash pad, but it's almost like, man, it just looks so much more brutal than like a mysterious black pad,
right?
Going through it. But that gets the win for Taker. Undertaker is your new hardcore champion. What a time, man! I don't know how long this title even lasts after this, but it's something.
I don't remember. I just love though Undertaker. The look on Undertaker's face when he chokeslammed RVD, he just had this like, oh shit, oh, and then he goes down there like slowly gets down there. Referee counts to 3, and he's still like, oh. Like, I'm like, what is going on in your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking about that's making you have this facial expression? And then then it starts to go into this like heelish, like evil laugh, like, yeah. I did it. I'm like, Taker, you're having, like you said, he was having a good time. He was enjoying himself throughout the matchup, and just, I think, doing something different than he had done in years and years with the Dead Man gimmick. With this, it was like, all right, I get to try and experiment and play around with things, and man, I loved it. Your point about match of the night, I mean, I wasn't even thinking about like which one was match of the night, but I think I enjoyed this one as much as one other part of this show. But this right here was just, it was gold. It was gold.
Yeah,
same, man.
Yeah, because Taker's always had charisma, obviously, but I feel like this heel run allowed him to tap into a different kind of charisma, which I think is, like you said, it was something new and different for him to do.
Yeah. Because when do you ever see the Undertaker before the badass gimmick, jaw jacking with the crowd? Usually he's just this silent warrior type, and he's jacking with the crowd. Like, he's getting his ass kicked. I'm like, oh, shit.
Yes, sir.
Yes, right, man.
Yes.
Like,
good job.
Oh, my God. I was enjoying this. And I think he had changed his weight because he used to be a little bit more, his body was a little bit more soft. Now he was a little bit more muscular now. So even that was looking more intimidating with the short hair, like that biker.
Well, that last ride finish, I got to say, that's arguably the scariest finisher that he has. Like the tombstone, compacting somebody's neck, that's some scary shit. No doubt. But there's something about the impact that he gives when he does lifting him up and then slamming the guy down.
Bam.
Holy shit. I was, every time he would do that to people, I'm like, oh, you know, I had to brace myself. Like, damn.
Because he's like 7 foot tall, right?
Yeah. Imagine how high up the guy's got to be when he's taking that. Wow, looking down like, holy shit, I signed up for this.
What's happening?
Right.
It's too high, bro. It's too high.
This is never again. Just tombstone me next time.
Oh, man.
Small package next time.
Exactly. Just roll up.
I almost forgot, like, oh, yeah, we're still doing chair shots to the head. You know, when they had like the garbage can, and I was like on the head. I'm like, oh shit, because I'm so used to the back now. Everything's just the back. You know, this is before
when you see it now.
Yeah. That was like, holy shit. Yeah, this is right. This is to the head. We still doing. I'm gonna bust your head to the White Meat show. You know. But this match was fun. I love the ending when when Rob Van Dam's going for the Van Terminator and he misses the, basically he did like a Matrix move, Undertaker, choke slam him, bow, and you see Rob Van Dam just sleep. He is out, snoring.
Yeah, he is.
Seeing this matchup, it made me just kind of think like, wow, Rob Van Dam, he was such a, like in ECW, he was amazing. And, his WWF run, I feel like it never quite lived up to what I thought in my head he would have been like. Like I always put him in that category of like a Shawn Michaels kind of guy who could just get a crowd going nuts and, just uber talented, uber charismatic. We just never got that. Like this match was arguably one of his best matches during his entire run in the WWF, if you look back at it. So it's crazy.
Yeah, RVD had an incredible 2001 in the company. He came in, he wasn't supposed to get over. He just got over organically.
Yeah.
His matches with Jeff Hardy were incredible. He had a match with Jericho that was awesome. And they had a whole thing with Steve Austin and Kurt Angle. Like he was in the main event fighting for the world title. Like this dude that was just supposed to be a number in the alliance he just, rose to the top just based on how good he was.
Yeah.
But it's funny you mentioned that, like his career in general and how it didn't really live up to that hype. I'm almost wondering, like, did this match, was this his peak? Like, did this match kill RVD? Because he went on to have, he ended up winning the WWE title and Intercontinental titles and stuff like that. He was always doing something, right? But it's almost like he lost a lot of momentum after this, I think.
Yeah, he lost a lot of momentum after this. And there was that opportunity with that One Night Stand pay-per-view where he beat John Cena for the championship to become champion. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, they're finally doing this. They're finally going to give RVD that run. And then it just didn't happen. And then after that, I feel like, he just kind of became one of the guys again. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I know towards the end of 2002, once the brand extension happens, he's on Raw. And I think it's like No Mercy 02 where he faces Triple H for the world title. And then he's involved in that first Elimination Chamber for the world title. But then after that, he kind of sinks back into like the Intercontinental, facing like Christians and Shelton Benjamins and stuff like that. But he almost kind of like falls into the WWE formula, kind of sort of. Because at this point, he's doing all this wilder shit, right? But eventually, kind of, his moves. He hits his greatest hits, and then that's pretty much it. But
so for some reason, when I think of RVD's run a little bit, I'm actually think a current guy, that reminds me that is Ricochet in WWE right now. It's kind of similar where they come in with a lot of hype, big indie star, group, super athletic, people love him, but then just doesn't quite get over with maybe just with Vince, like the fans love him, but I don't know, just kind of similar situations, I feel. But RVD definitely reached a higher height than Ricochet has yet to. So maybe Ricochet still can do that at least. But it's just I kind of put them in that same category. Like, man, like there's potential there that I can see, that most fans can see, that there's something about them that Vince it doesn't quite catch him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a certain level of charisma. Like RVD had charisma. RVD was great on the mic, especially in ECW, but I feel like they never really let him go as hard as he did in ECW. And Ricochet, even, he's not, I don't think he's as good as RVD on the mic, but he has a level of charisma that I think can be tapped into. But which I don't really watch Raw a lot at this point, but it seems like the stuff he's doing with Sheamus. Yeah. You know? Right. So I don't want to come off like the expert or anything, but he seems like he's been doing a lot of good stuff with Sheamus recently. So maybe
I've appreciated just seeing him on television. Yeah. Like I'll take it. You know, if this is what we're gonna do, have him with Sheamus, and Sheamus is doing great work, and you know, the great heel work right now. So I'll take it. I think it's great he's on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. But then after that, we have a backstage segment. So there's actually 2 segments during the show with Ric Flair in his office. But they're essentially the same thing, so we'll just talk about them at the same time. So you have first Kurt Angle barges into Ric Flair's office, tells Ric Flair, it's like, I don't know, it popped me this segment. He's like, I'm going to win the title. And Ric Flair's like, okay. No, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go win the title. I believe you. It's just like,
I'm going to do it. I will. I'm going to do it.
Go do it.
Oh, man.
Kurt Angle.
God bless Kurt Angle.
His humor just hits me right on the funny bone, whatever it is.
It was funny. He's like, I'm going to kick Stone Cold's butt. I'm gonna like just the way he won't curse and he won't like during Attitude Era, people don't care. They're saying all sorts of stuff, but he makes sure he sticks to his character. He keeps it PG all the time. I'm gonna kick Stone Cold's butt, and I'm just like, so Kurt Angle. Oh man, love it.
Oh god, he's all hyped up on 2% or something. Man. He's just
yeah, that was his thing. The milk.
Lots of lactose running through those veins.
Oh man, love him.
And you have Jericho essentially doing the same thing. They both claim that it's funny. They both are like, Flair, you've never been the undisputed WWE World Champion. It's like, yeah, we literally just created that. This is the first time anybody has a chance.
No one's ever done this.
Ric Flair's won. Well, he's a 16-time champ at this point, right? And
he was a 14-time.
Won every title
actually.
Under the sun. Yeah. Was he 14 times?
Yeah, he was 14 times.
Whatever
at that point. Yeah.
I think he's won more at this point than all other 4 guys combined. So it's like,
right.
who are you talking to Ric Flair that he hasn't won this specific title? But yeah, man. So after that, we have a barn burner here. The WWF Women's Championship is on the line.
Oh my god!
Something was burning. Made my pee burn this match.
Wow!
Wow! It was a.
I hated the commentary.
The women's division. Yeah. It was. We could literally just go through the commentary, and that would be like, it would sum up the match better than any words that I could say. But the women's division was. It was nothing at this point.
It was lacking for sure.
This is actually fresh. So Chyna was the champion at WrestleMania, and then she defended against Lita at Judgment Day 2 months after that. And there was like a several-month period, the whole invasion, there was no women's title, because at that point Chyna had left the company with the title, so it's essentially vacant. But there was no reference to it on the show, no really women's match. They had bra and panties matches with like Stacy and Tori coming in from WCW and all that stuff. But yeah, it was really like not even a rebuilding period, a building period. But you have people like Jazz come in. She debuted at Survivor Series. You have Jacqueline, who's serviceable. You have Ivory. You have some good talent. You have Lita, obviously. But yeah, Trish here was very green, and that was very evident in this match. Yeah. Man, it was so there was really no story to it. It was just like a women's match to have. It was pretty much a let up match in between matches to get ready for the main event. It was maybe like 2 minutes. I don't know how long it was, but you know, there's one spot where Trish goes for a chick kick, but then Jacqueline like leg sweeps her, which was like more athletic than I expected coming out of this match, and it like looked nasty. I don't know how Trish made it out in one piece, but crowd's chanting puppies the whole time. So was Jerry Lawler, really, on commentary.
Countless times.
He's King's wondering if Trish has a black bra on or not.
Yeah, the entire time. That's all you can focus on.
It's very evident. It's funny when he comes back every now and then to commentate, and he tries to hold that back.
You can tell. You can feel it coming from him. Like, oh, he wants to say something, but he knows he can't.
Every once in a while, he gets a ramen noodle moonsault. So. Says that he wants the puppies to come out to play. All that says something about them being pointers. You know, but other than that, in the background, we have a really clunky wrestling match going on. Trish wins with a backslide out of nowhere. Kind of like a botchy kind of finish, but it's over. Trish wins. And
they shake hands.
Do they? No,
they shook hands at the end.
I walked away halfway through this match. I don't know what happened.
I mean, so it's interesting, you know, just looking at the women's division then and where we're at now. It's like, oh my God, just so much has changed, you know, in terms of and evolved when it comes to women's wrestling. I commend JR a lot during this matchup because he actually just tried to call the matchup and tried to actually focus on it, you know, and with all the distractions, with the crowd chanting puppies, with Jerry continuously, you know, trying to get JR to talk about the black bra. Is it a black bra? I think I saw a black bra. Like, JR is calling moves and actually calling the match. So, you know, just props to him for even at that time, you know, still keeping the focus and trying to help. Because in the ring, even though it was botchy and it was rough, they're really trying hard to put together
hard, for sure.
a clean wrestling match. They're trying their best to do what they can. And, you know, it's like the beginnings of this becoming like an actual thing in WWF, WWE later on that, you know, we will put more of a focus on women's wrestling with people like Trish at the forefront, you know, and Lita, you know, and other stars later on. But yeah, it was hard to watch, you know, from a like, oh man, people were chanting puppies at this time and Jerry and all that, you know. But then I look at it as this is kind of looking back at it, you have an appreciation for where we are at now, given seeing how it was then, you know, and man, the work that they've had to do to get us to this point is crazy.
Yeah, this match was very cringe that towards the end, I muted my TV. I was annoyed. I was annoyed by the King. He was literally annoying me, saying puppies, and the crowd was getting to it. I was just trying to focus on the wrestling because I was just like, man, I was really intrigued. Like, man, Trish really came a long way, and you could see how Jackie was just leading her and trying to groom her into becoming the wrestler she is. And you know, when Jazz came in, I think that's when Trish really took another huge step forward when her and Jazz really got into the mix. But you know, this match was very cringe. It's just you know, if Twitter was around back then, they'd have a field day with this, bro. You know, but yeah, you know, to Hafiz's point, JR really was trying to focus on the wrestling even after the match when he was saying, you know, hey, I can't wait till these ladies meet again, and then of course the King had to say something stupid again after that. But you know, of
course,
here's what it is now in this time. Yeah, with that time.
It's crazy because this past weekend I just randomly watched WrestleMania 19, and there was a triple threat on that show. It was Trish versus Jazz versus Victoria, and I don't really remember a lot about the match, so I was watching it and I was like, it's a pretty damn good match. Like, it was like night and day from what this match was. It was like a really cohesive, like it felt like something you would see today, really. So it was like roughly a year after this. So she definitely made strides in a quick period of time, I think.
I was going to bring up Victoria because Victoria and Trish too, they had some great feuds and rivalries. There's a hardcore match that they had too, where it was just brutal and like they went at it. And I feel like the crowd too, even at that time, was like noticing, like, hey, whoa, there's something happening here. This is kind of crazy. So yeah, just props to them for, you know, being able to see this again. Just gives me that appreciation for where they are now.
Yeah, for sure. But then after that, we get like a 4 or 5 minute recap of Vince McMahon kissing Rikishi's ass. Like, we didn't get enough of the review from the opening. I was like, why? I thought that the women's match was the time for people to kind of regroup, but apparently not. We need more ass on this show. But that brings us to the main event. Well, basically the main event. It's three matches.
Three-part main event.
Correct, yes. Essentially a 4-person tournament to crown the first ever Undisputed Champion. So they are merging together the WWF title and the World title. So we have Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and then we have The Rock versus Jericho. Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle is the first one. And man, you talked about how Stone Cold and Kurt Angle had chemistry, you know, on the mic and in their promos and all that, but they had really good chemistry in the ring as well. I think it kind of flies under the radar because this is kind of around the time where it's Austin and Rock and Austin and Triple H. People don't really think, because when they think of Austin and Kurt Angle, they think of the cowboy hats and the banjo or whatever the hell it is. But they had like SummerSlam 01 was one of my favorite matches of all time between those two. Then they had the match where Kurt won the title in Pittsburgh. Then they had another match. And this match here, even though it was like a third basically of the main event, I thought it was a damn good match between these two.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, that's a great point about their chemistry. You could feel it from the moment that Stone Cold gets in the ring and him and Kurt are staring at each other. That stare down, I felt it. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. You know, and they're going back and forth, you know, there's the methodical pace at first, but the storytelling, like all I could think to myself is Stone Cold is still so pissed about Kurt Angle betraying him in the alliance. Like he just can't stand Kurt Angle anymore. And that was so just in the eyes, the storytelling from both of these guys. It was great. The one-upsmanship, you know, with the wrestling, Stone Cold doing the rolling German suplexes on Kurt Angle, just crazy. I mean, just such a great match, back and forth throughout. Loved Kurt Angle hits the Angle slam. Stone Cold kicks out, and he's livid, and he's jumping up like a little kid having that tantrum, like, come on, get up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, again, just the character work from Kurt Angle. It's just, I don't think he gets enough credit, period. Like, I just think that Kurt Angle is just so underrated still, just for what he did as a character. But yeah, just great matchup, fun matchup. Like, I could watch that over and over again.
Yeah, Kurt Angle reminds me of, because how they was going down his accomplishments, you know, how he got everything so quick. I think within 3 or 5 years being champion. It reminds me of AJ Styles, how he first came in the WWE 2016. You know, in that run he had, you know, these matches he had with John Cena, that run he had with the WWE title on SmackDown, being one of the longest reigning champions. You know, and then now being a Grand Slam champion too, because he's been an Intercontinental U.S. champion, tag team champion now. He did that within a short amount of time. It reminds me, like, man, this is very similar to like Kurt Angle, man. And Kurt Angle, man, this dude was wrestling, bro. I was like, man, the beautiful moonsault he did. I was like, oh my God, that was just so graceful. And I had to like, let me rewind it. It was just so smooth, so elegant. I was like, how?
Yeah.
It was just I was just so amazed by it, man. And then the wrestling between and then the wrestling between him and Stone Cold, like Stone Cold with the simple wrestling moves, you know, him twisting his arm and just yanking it. I'm like, I remember those wrestling moves. How come I don't see that today? You know, I used to do that. On my little sister. You know, hey, let me twist your arm and yank it.
Right. Yeah. You know, you might think we'll finish a match by like a headlock.
Yeah. Like, man, but these guys had awesome chemistry, and I noticed that they was calling the moves on the fly, because at times you could see them kind of just mouthing out these moves like they're John Cena, but. You know, but I was just impressed. Like, man, it's not even going through a script. They are calling this. They're calling this live, like second by second. So I was just impressed by that, man.
Yeah, it just all ties into that chemistry, man. It was next level. It's almost like Kurt brought out a different side of Stone Cold, because with Stone Cold matches, you know, especially in this era, it'd be a lot of like brawling in the crowd and brawling in the aisleway and punching and kicking. But it's like when it was him and Kurt, it was like a wrestling match. It was like, damn, this is like stunning Steve Austin again. Like it was awesome to see.
Yeah, it's easy to forget. Like Stone Cold, he's got that technical side to him. Like one of his greatest matches ever was with Bret Hart. You know, and just that's kind of the match that made him get to that next level of like superstardom and people just loving him no matter what. Walked into that match a heel, walked out a face. Like it's crazy. So, you know, just Stone Cold, in a way, like he's definitely gotten his due. But there's certain aspects that I think sometimes I can forget, like, oh yeah, he's in there with a technical guy, he can hang with him. He's in there with a brawler, oh hell yeah, that's he can hang with him. Like, he's just so, you know, like flexible in that way with so many different styles. You know, just have an appreciation for him big time. With Kurt Angle, one more thing I want to say about him too is that, you know, technical wrestlers, I think, had this thing about them where they were always just super focused on the wrestling, but their characters were very basic and bland. You know, like, you have your Chris Benoit's and your Bret Hart's and guys
Dan
like that.
Severn.
Yeah, that it's just Ken Shamrock, you know, like, you come in and you are technical. That's your thing. That's your character, is you're an actual wrestler or an actual fighter, but not much in terms of like charismatic or over the top character. With Kurt, I feel like he was one of the first guys that blend the two in his own way. Like, he's super technical, Olympic gold medalist, won't let you forget it. But then he's also funny as shit. Like, the milk truck thing and all the things we're talking about, the little nuances with his character, staying PG in this Attitude Era, you know, like, it's just amazing. You know, just the level of being able to blend that great character work with this great wrestling in a way that, to me, there wasn't another guy that I could say, oh, he did it like Kurt. Like, he's one of a kind.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly, because we're only like 2 years into his career at this point, which is insane. You mentioned he won all the titles within his first year, you know, King of the Ring and all that. It's like, man, and he not even at his peak really physically, which is insane.
This man had a great matchup with Shane McMahon. Like, he and Shane tore the roof off. Just yeah, man.
It's
awesome.
Not fair.
Awesome.
We're not even at bald Kurt yet at this point.
Yeah, he's not here.
We're not even there, man.
We got Widow's Peak Kurt.
Oh, man.
Can't be perfect, I guess. But yeah, like you guys said, awesome match. Got, you know, moonsaults, we got the ankle lock spots, all that stuff. Really back and forth, all the suplexes and all that. Ultimately, Stone Cold hits the Stone Cold Stunner for the win, and he moves on to the finals. But we don't get to the match right away. The next match.
Why? Why did this happen?
No. We got to break it up with something.
Why?
Unnecessary.
What do we break it up with? Well, goddamn, pal. Let's have Test try to rape Trish. That's good shit. But don't worry. Don't worry. It's okay, because he can't get fired because of the Battle Royal. Remember? Yeah. So it's fine. So you can rape people.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah. Force yourself on people when they came out the shower. Like, it was so ridiculous. Like, this was literally, I don't care what era, what time we're in. Why does this make sense? Like, why was this okay to them to do this segment? Like, what is going on? And he knows it's wrong, because he's saying, what? You're going to get me fired? You're going to tattle on me? You're going to tell somebody? What? Why are we showing this?
I think I'll call the authorities, actually.
Yes.
Right. It just made no sense whatsoever. I don't understand.
Yeah. We'll take it above Ric Flair, I think. But yeah, so that we have a little segment there and pretty much explained it. But after that, we have the world title on the line. The Rock, the champion, versus Chris Jericho. I like this match a lot too. I don't know if I liked it as much as Austin versus Kurt, but these are two guys that I thought also had really good chemistry. This match I think it kind of dragged in the beginning, but it eventually picked up. They fight to the outside. You got Jericho trying to hit the Rock bottom onto the Rock through the announce table, but the Rock counters with a DDT through the table. Brutal spot. You get back in the ring. You got Rock going for a Rock bottom again, but Jericho reverses into the breakdown, I think he calls it, which is like a skull-crushing finale, which somehow The Miz does better. Never really quite got over with that move, but it's like the other guy didn't know to fall. He would it's like if you tried to do a skull-crushing finale like in a shoot. Like, if you're just in a street fight,
you try to actually do it to someone.
What are you trying to do?
What are you doing? What is happening now? Love me.
just walks away. Enough of the shenanigans.
Walks away from him.
Oh man, but so The Rock, you know, they're going back and forth, but then the shenanigans start, and Vince McMahon comes out, distracts the ref as so Rock hits the rock bottom on Jericho in the ring. Rock is going for a pin, but Vince distracts the ref. The Rock is pretty peeved at this, so he gets out and punches Vince, knocks him off the apron, hits the spine buster on Jericho, hits the people's elbow, but Vince is back up. He's back on the apron, so Rock just throws him in the ring, pulls him in the ring. He's distracted with Vince, which allows Jericho to capitalize and hits a low blow onto The Rock, followed by a rock bottom, because this breakdown shit ain't working. So I'm going to take your move. Thanks.
I'm using yours.
And that gives Jericho the win here with The Rock's own move. Yeah, lots of tomfoolery here, but it's pretty entertaining for what it was.
I was shocked that he beat him with the rock bottom, because usually that doesn't happen. Like if you use someone else's move, you might get a 2 count, but rarely do you see someone actually follow through and get a win, and not to mention winning a championship that way. So I wonder if there was maybe they went a detour. There was supposed to be another finish, and maybe they say, you know what, just do the rock bottom, and we'll just do that, because it was odd seeing Rock lose that way. But overall, entertaining matchup. I had fun with it. It's funny because this matchup was longer than the Austin Kurt Angle matchup, but I thought it was shorter watching it. Like, it felt like, to me, you said that in the beginning it felt slow. To me, the whole match felt like it was moving in fast motion. Like, I just felt like maybe they were running out of time, and like all of a sudden they just had to do all these things and like get it all in there because we're cutting it close or something. Because I thought there was just a pacing to it where it just felt like it was moving faster than I was expecting it to. But great spots. Like, so that table spot was awesome. I usually like seeing like the Rock bottom through the table whenever the Rock's out there, but he did the DDT. That was cool. I was a little upset I didn't get to see the people's elbow fully executed. Vince McMahon interrupted it. It's okay. It's okay.
Goddamn Vince McMahon.
Damn Vince McMahon. Jericho did it. You know, Jericho did his little version of it.
That's close, right?
He tried. But yeah, and I didn't feel like the crowd was that as hot for this matchup as I remembered it in my mind. Like, in my mind, I thought, oh yeah, they were going nuts because it's Undisputed Championship. But I don't know, it felt like they weren't quite there for this match. With the Stone Cold and Kurt Angle matchup, I felt like they were a little bit more into it. With this one, I even caught some boos a little bit for both of them, even for The Rock too, as a babyface. Yeah. You know, and like I said, anytime Stone Cold Steve Austin's running for anything, The Rock is the heel. So, you know, like maybe that was what was going on. They all wanted Austin to win.
I almost wonder if it was like they thought it was a foregone conclusion that Rock was going to win. Maybe it's like, let's get this match over with so we can get Rock and Austin in the main event. You know,
could be. Could be. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I remember watching this match. You know, being 16, watching this match. Hearing it, you know, because I'm watching it scramble, but hearing the finish, I'm like, what? The Rock lost to his own.
Are they playing the wrong music?
Dude, that sucks, man. I remember I hated Chris Jericho. This was like on the precipice of me being pissed, you know, because I'm giving a little foreshadowing that, you know, the main event between him and Stone Cold, you know, once we get to there, but I was already at a level 1 of my pistosity right there. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm pissed. This shouldn't have happened. How the hell did The Rock lose, you know, to Chris Jericho, you know, to his own move? It didn't even make sense to me. But watching it now, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the little scrapple they had before they got really into wrestling. And then, man, Chris Jericho was just so, he moved, you know, being so built, he still moved like a cruiserweight, you know. He did the lion salt. And I was like, oh, man, that is real smooth, almost similar to Kurt Angle's moonsault. It was just very graceful. These two dudes definitely had some chemistry. Those 2 table spots were rough. I forget I forget how those announce tables look like. They didn't give at that at that point in time. Like they didn't have all the padding.
They're like,
right,
like crash
this
pads
much
arranged
of
like a
padding
table.
right here. You know,
Back then they were tables that got broken. Now it's crash pads that are tables.
Right. But now I was like, man, the DDT, the Chris Jericho on the table. I was like, oh my God, that looked like it was very, very stiff. But in the end, I had fun with the match. But I remember being super pissed about the finish.
Oh, you're about to reach level 2 pissosity with this next match here, man. Maybe even level 3, who knows? But I gotta take a deep breath before this main event here. So Jericho wins. He's holding up the title. And then you hear Steve Austin's music. Right into it. Right into it. I love the yes, the facials. Just about to say the
him.
Like right now.
Another match now.
Throw another test segment up on there. Who else is taking a shower? Who else gets in there? Goddamn it! These Canadians gotta stick together. Oh, but yes, Steve Austin, right out there, still hobbling, selling his from his match previous to this. Before the bell even rings, we have Kurt Angle gets back in there, and he whacks Steve with a steel chair. And The Rock gets in there and hits Jericho with the rock bottom. And I believe Rock and Kurt fight to the back a little bit. It's whatever.
Chases him away, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So both guys are laid out. And then I don't know if the bell even rings at this point, but eventually the match gets underway.
I think it rang inadvertently, and I think JR asked or Jerry asked, did it ring? So it was a little messy there because I think they had rang the bell, and then Kurt does the chair shot, and it's like, well, shit, that'd be a disqualification if we're following the rules, but whatever. Let's just keep going, you know?
Pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah,
Mulligan.
exactly.
Mulligan. But it only gets messier, man. So they brawl on the outside. Steve pulls up the mat on the outside to expose the concrete, which is always just a brutal thing there. Ends up suplexing Jericho onto it, and you just hear the flap. It's just like, yikes. Eventually get back in the ring. Goes back and forth for a little bit. Jericho gets Austin in the walls of Jericho for a pretty long time. Austin eventually gets to the ropes. Jericho then hits, I guess, a stunner on Austin. It was ugly. It was pretty ugly. I think that first one on the Vince was the only worse one than that one. But he's like, But Earl Hebner the ref gets knocked down at some point. Then Vince McMahon's back out. Brings Nick Patrick with him, the crooked former WCW referee.
Yep.
Oh, man. Fuck Nick Patrick, man. So Jericho covers Austin in the ring. Nick Patrick gets thrown in there to make the count. But Ric Flair comes out, pulls Nick Patrick out of the ring, clocks him in the face. Then Vince McMahon and Ric Flair start brawling. And Vince throws Flair face first into the ring post, which looks pretty brutal. I'm going to say it looked pretty good. Flair's like, this is the one bump I'm taking. I'm going to make it look good. Back in the ring, Austin hits a low blow on Jericho. I don't know how many low blows we've seen at this point, but Austin hits a low blow on Jericho and then goes outside, punches Vince in the face, I believe. Back in the ring, Austin gets Jericho in the walls of Jericho. Jericho is tapping out, but there's no ref. Then Booker T comes out. 5 time people coming out. 5 people coming out to interfere. 5 people. This is very reminiscent of when Booker T debuted at, I think it was King of the Ring, when he came out from the crowd and broke Austin's neck on the announce table, but didn't break his neck this time, so I guess that's a plus. But Booker T grabs the WWF title, hits Austin in the back of the head with it, and Jericho covers Austin. Earl Hebner's alive again, makes the count, 1, 2, 3. Chris Jericho.
Last count.
Oh, that slow Earl Hebner count. Iconic.
It's like, oh my God, this can't be happening.
Yeah. That
Not this way.
Forever,
Not this
man.
way.
Yeah, not this way. Damn it, not this way. Oh, son of a bitch.
So good. So good. But yeah, I guess Jericho the win. First ever Undisputed Champion. And boy, he would remind us once a week for the. I don't know how many years this has been. I beat Austin and Rock in the same night. This is how it happens.
He said it on his podcast.
Oh yeah, I bet. And he had this thing. So Jericho wins. So and Vince McMahon, he's laughing because remember he laughs last. The whole how it was set up. So that's fun. We're having fun here. There's confetti and there's fireworks going off, but Jericho like just skedaddles. Like he wins and he just immediately goes to the back. So really the show closes out. You have Stone Cold in the ring by himself, and his stupid bald head is just covered in this confetti. He's looking like a cupcake with sprinkles. And then and that's how the show ends. Yeah. Lots of shenanigans there.
Oh man, there's so many things going on here.
Yeah, I was going through the different levels of anger. Yeah, and right when that finished, I was turning into the Hulk. I felt like JR was feeding me more anger because he was angry too. You know, when Earl Hebner going for that slow ass count, it's like 1. No, this can't be happening. No, not this way, 2. Oh my God. I'm like, no, scared. I'm like screaming at my scrambled TV because I'm hearing this, man. I can hear it clearly. You know, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, seeing, but here I'm like, what? Stone Cold lost. He's not the Undisputed Champion. Chris Jericho is, and Chris Jericho, he looked shocked. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He just holding up 2 titles like, oh, shit, I got nuclear heat on me. I got to get the hell out of this stadium now. You know? But looking at it now, I enjoyed it. It was fun, you know, how the different ways, you know, who got involved. Kurt Angle got involved. Even
who didn't get involved.
Everybody. Vince, man.
Like Albert was in there somewhere.
And then I forgot about Booker T. I was like, ah, shit, that's right.
I totally forgot he was a part of this.
He came out of nowhere and hit Stone Cold. I was like, wow, that's how we're going to do it. And 1, 2, 3, Chris Jericho, first Undisputed Champion who will never let you forget it to this day.
Never.
So it's funny because for me, seeing that, I actually loved it for Jericho because Jericho actually got screwed against Triple H. I don't know if it was earlier that year or previously to this, but there was a Raw where Jericho won the one of the championships, WWF championship, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they reversed it. It never happened, and I was so pissed because I tell you, I was so happy when he won. It was like I was there. I'm like, yes, Jericho, you did it, yeah. And then he took it away right after. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I was so mad. I was so mad. You know, time passes, he's in the situation, and I didn't pick Jericho to win this, you know, but seeing him get not just the World Championship, the WWE, now he's Undisputed Champion. Like, it's just such a payoff for Jericho's character from when he debuted, the whole countdown clock, and he debuted on The Rock, and then he beats The Rock here for the championship. I mean, just such a just great for him. Like, oh my God, now he gets to be the guy that they never really let him be in WCW. And, you know, Devin knows this, but WCW is kind of the way that I got into wrestling on a hardcore level. I mean, as a kid, I saw, like, you know, I knew of Hogan and, you know, Andre, but didn't really like watch. You know, it wasn't until like some of the WCW versus NWO video games that I really started getting into it. And like Chris Jericho was one of the characters there, so I knew of him already. And this moment was like, oh shit, like they actually did it. Those sons of bitches actually like are gonna give Jericho a chance at this. So it was actually really cool. Yes, I would have loved to see, like everybody, I feel like we all thought, Rock versus Austin. And I would have loved to see that for the Undisputed Championship. That would have been amazing. That would have been perfect. But this right here as a consolation, seeing Jericho, you know, who, like I said, got screwed over with Triple H and had the big debut on The Rock to get the title. I was like, oh man, this is kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's crazy because Jericho, they've teased his crowning moment several times, like you said with Triple H.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask you this: do you guys remember him beating The Rock for the world title at No Mercy?
No.
Ooh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. I recently covered that show, and I was like, wait, what's up? He just beats The Rock, and he's world champion for like 2 weeks. But like, it's like I thought he didn't win the title until Vengeance, but no, he won the title. I guess it was a WCW title, so maybe it wasn't canon.
During
I guess.
the whole,
yeah.
Oh,
and then he technically he's the because he beats who did he beat? He beat The Rock, so he was world champion.
Mm-hmm.
It was like he didn't even get a chance to celebrate that because he had like 2 seconds.
Now
and
it's like
Austin.
they're gonna take it from him. It's gonna like Stone Cold's winning. This is not happening.
Hope you had fun, kid.
Right. Here we go again.
Oh man, but yeah, like you said, wins very unpredictable.
Yeah.
Gets out of there and then goes on. I think he faces The Rock at the Rumble, I believe. And then goes on to face Triple H at WrestleMania, where he gets beat. But he doesn't really reach that height. I'm trying to think. Not really until he came back with the short hair and the suits. Until he won another world title, I don't think, right? But yeah.
Yeah.
So so there's a long period where it was just kind of, I guess he did Fozzy and stuff like that too. But cool moment for Jericho, and that brings the show to a close, and that brings 2001 to a close as well. Definitely that's my favorite year of wrestling personally. But yeah, overall thoughts on Vengeance 2001.
It was fun as hell to go back and watch this, you know, and see so many of these faces from back then. I mean, I was 18 at the time, so you know, just seeing that, being like, wow, like this is 20 years ago, like holy shit, like what time has flown, you know, and seeing a Chris Jericho back then, you know, and getting to see Stone Cold and The Rock and Kurt Angle like in their heyday, it was awesome. And some of the other guys too, it was just like Edge, you know, like you know, like just you think you know me, like just awesome, man. Just seeing, you know, a lot of these guys, it was great. And yeah, it's definitely it's hard to go back and know like exactly in some of these situations how I felt about like the Scotty 2 Hotties and, you know, the Alberts of the world back then. So seeing it now, it's like, oh wow, like it's just I have this appreciation that, you know, their careers are done. It is what it is, but it's cool to be able to go back and see this. Great, just fun pay-per-view overall. Kind of a mess with the ending, you know, overall. Even Jericho, I mean, that's another thing he brought up. He's like, man, like how many things happened in that main event, huh? Like this is just so. You know, it was messy for sure, you know, but overall, like it was fun. It was fun then for me, and even now seeing it, I feel like it was even more fun in a way because again, with so much time passing, the nostalgia factor kicks in, and it's just like, oh shit, this is that moment where we crowned that first ever Undisputed Champion. Like when I found out we were doing this, I was like, oh yes, I get to watch.
It's a fun era,
right?
It's just so cool.
I mean, you know, just living back my childhood history, I just remember being livid because I remember the main event match, you know, and then going back into Vengeance 2001, just seeing William Regal, how he went down, just to being appreciative of how he told the story in the ring. Before my younger self, I would just overlook it. I wasn't feeling him. I'm like, I didn't get it. I'm like, whatever, you know, seeing Edge, his young spry self, seeing Kurt Angle before the "you suck" chants. You know, I'm saying I'm like, oh yeah, this is before you suck.
That kind of, I was waiting for it. I was like, where are the "you suck" chants? Oh, like, it didn't happen yet?
Right, didn't happen yet.
I was thinking, did Peacock edit this but not edit everything else? Like, what is going on?
You know, and then seeing tag team wrestling matter too. You know, at a time that it was just so popular, because you look at it now, it's like they don't care about tag team wrestling, but seeing it, how they treat it, how they treat the Dudleys, even, you know, the chemistry between Kane and Big Show, just seeing these big two house type dudes going at it. I have fun with the show, man. So overall, it was fun. A little bit cringy at times, you know, because given the decade,
a lot
but
cringy.
yeah, a lot of cringy. I'm being kind, I guess, being nice, but
it was very, very 2001.
Right, exactly. It's very dated. But I have fun though, man. It was a good pay-per-view. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good. I think everybody just thinks of this pay-per-view as Jericho winning the Undisputed title, but there's a lot of good stuff on here. RVD versus Taker, like you said, the tag team match, and then I agree. I think it was a really solid show. But speaking of solid shows, the tribal chief of podcasting and his right-hand co-host, why don't you tell everybody?
Nobody's bitch. Nobody's bitch. I refuse. Every time someone says that, I gotta make a point.
Yes,
that I am nobody's bitch. That the whole right-hand co-host, I do not acknowledge that name. But you know, it's all in fun.
Hey, I didn't come up with that name.
Parentheses in his name.
Done. It was done on me. So.
I don't have to accept it.
Okay. That's. But yes, thank you guys once again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Why don't you tell everybody where you guys can find the Clark Street Wrestling Podcast?
Oh man, it's real simple. We got a one-stop and shop website. You can find all our social links, all our merch. This beautiful merch right here that you see, like this Clark Street Wrestling tank. We got new merch too. The tribal chief of podcasters and the right-hand co-host in nice black attire.
Nobody's bitch.
But like I said, all our platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. ClarkStreetWrestling.com, ST for the abbreviation. That's ClarkStreetWrestling.com, ST for the abbreviation. So you got everything for your need to come find us.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks you guys for coming on.
Appreciate it, man.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you for having us.
Once again, thank you to Hafiz and Devin from the Clark Street Wrestling Podcast for joining me today, recapping Vengeance 2001. What a nutty show this was, man. And that brings the year of 2001 for WWF to a close. What a year, man. And it's probably my favorite year of wrestling, 2001. I would have to think about it, but 2001, as far as the pay-per-views go for this company, I don't think there's any other year that can top it, in my opinion. Maybe like 97, but we're not there yet. That's a different timeline in this podcast, so subscribe if you want to follow that as well. And if you enjoy these attitude, I guess it's not Attitude Era, but if you enjoy these this era of WWF, Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression, and everything in between, go to apronbump.com. You can go to the episodes tab at the top, filter to Attitude Era. I'm probably just going to call this Attitude Era just for you know, bookkeeping's sake. But click on Attitude Era, and it'll filter out the episodes to bring you all the Attitude Era episodes that I have recapped with my various guests. So it'll bring you to each episode. You can click on each one. You can listen to it in browser on the website itself. You can click on the YouTube link to watch the video version, or you can click on whatever podcast platform you listen to that is displayed right there, and it'll bring you right to the app. And then you can listen to this warm, delicious voice talk about Sean Stasiak, right to censor, whatever show it is, right? But also, like I touched on in the intro, go check out my WWF 2001 pay-per-view tier list on YouTube as well. And subscribe to my YouTube, because we're going to be doing more YouTube exclusive content on there in the next few months, and however long I do this. So go check that out. And yeah, off to 2002, I guess. Man, I can't wait for that shit. Like I said, haven't seen it, but there's a lot. It's a huge year for WWF because, well, they become no longer WWF, and a bunch of huge shit. The brand extension, lots of big stuff happening in 2002, and I can't wait. Subscribe so you don't miss any, you know, Katie Vick, Billy and Chuck, all that shit. You don't want to miss any of that, folks. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you all for listening. Give you a little cheek kiss here. All right. I'm hard.
walk around, don't disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I can. Let's get it started. It's the hardest.